we may have some visitors come on and watch us live, but if we don't, then life goes on.
Yep.
We it doesn't really matter too much at all. So that's fantastic. So what I will do is I've written one thing down that you'll see why I wrote it down in a second, but so I need my notes out just to have that one little thing that I will never remember off the top of my head. But the rest of it though, I've been checking out your website all morning, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, let's roll into it. It is Tew, isn't it? Malcolm Tew is how I pronounce it.
Yep. Tew.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, welcome back to the Coaches to the Moon podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's a beautiful rainy Friday here in Sydney, and I'm joined by Malcolm Tew. He's a financial coach from the Money Study, and he does everything from one-on-one mentorship and coaching all the way through to financial educational webinars. And this man is one of the busiest men I've ever met. He's booked out for 12 months at a time, and he does little to no marketing whatsoever. So we're very excited to speak to you. Malcolm, thanks for being here, mate.
Pleasure.
It's really fun. And you've never used Zoom before, so congrats on that.
Yeah, as I say, I've used a lot of others, but it's very common. But no, I haven't had a chance to use this one before.
Well, I think you're blessed because we've all spent way too much time in Zoom. Zoom fatigue is actually kind of a bit of a thing that's been rampant in the last year or so. Especially for some of my friends, my age, we're all about in our 30s, and a lot of my friends are in that middle management corporate thing at the moment, and they're spending their entire workday at home on Zoom like this. And my friends who are teachers as well, talking on Zoom all day, they're really, really struggling. So I think for yourself, being able to see face-to-face clients still is you're very blessed.
I mean, during the COVID, I was doing a lot of online sort of not one-on-one meetings. And I must admit, I mean, probably half my clients decided no, they wanted to postpone to later for a face-to-face. There is something about that being there in the same room to be able to sort of gauge their, are they really grimacing? They don't understand a word you're saying, or they, it's just the body language you don't quite get from the cameras that you do in a live situation.
100%. Yeah, I agree. And, to make a camera look good, you've got to get, I'm staring into a very bright light here. You got to get the microphone perfect and everything and get the background right. The more we can be face-to-face, the better. And although I did mention before that I can see some very intense looking mixing equipment in the background there, and you're on the side of being a, dynamite financial coach, you're a professional muso.
Yes, have been for, dare I say, well over 50 years of music, and still dabble. I've actually got a little duo that I do with my younger daughter. We're called The Bold and the Beautiful. Yes.
Love that.
I don't know who's who, but yeah.
What do you play? What do you guys play?
I play piano and sing, and my daughter plays piano and sings as well. So yeah,
love that. Do you do like weddings and pubs?
These days we still dabble in weddings, but it's just really in Canberra here. We do a lot of the sort of work around the clubs and a few of the pubs and cafes and that sort of stuff.
How fun is that?
Yeah.
I would love to get back into gigging. I was not quite on the wedding piano. I was in a punk band.
Oh, okay.
I was in a kind of a grunge punk band all the way through high school and up until I was about 21 when I started working as a chef, and work and gigs kind of interlock a little bit. So I dropped the band, but we got back.
Back in the 70s, I had hair down to here and playing pub rock, and that's why these days I wear 2 hearing aids as well. So,
I bet you did. You knackered yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
When my babies are a little older, I'd love to get back on the drums again, but one day. But we're here to talk about you today, Malcolm. And as I mentioned before, you're a very, very busy boy, and you're doing face-to-face. And a lot of coaches out there these days are doing these online programs and everything. You're keeping it very simple. You're doing face-to-face, one-on-one mentoring, small sessions. You say you're doing 6 sessions a day, and you're booked out until October next year. Yep. And you do very little marketing online, right?
I do virtually nothing.
Virtually nothing. So I'm going to say that the majority of your business comes from word of mouth.
Absolutely.
And referrals. So can you say, what do you think is so important about word of mouth for a small business owner, and how can we all go about getting more referrals like that?
Yeah, look, the word of mouth to me is absolutely critical. And so every single client that I have, to me, is my next is my next booking. And I believe that the most important part is to have empathy, with our client, to ensure that we're actually listening to what they want, where they're coming from. And so when I deal with my clients, I ask a lot of other, dare I say, personal questions, to sort of gauge how they feel more than just, their money side of the aspect. And I tell little stories about my own life to sort of show that, I've been there and had some tough things in the past, and that gives me a bit of empathy, and just give value for money. And so as a coach, I don't do any, I don't write a plan. So I'm not charging these clients $3,500 for an 80-page report that they'll never need. I used to be a financial planner, and dare I say, I hated it. I hated the trading fees, the commissions, the bonuses, the conflict of interest. That's just that pressure all the time to be selling something, and then lying in bed at night wondering, did I actually put that person into that particular product because I get an extra 1% off, and so forth. As a coach, it's just pure information. And I think people in that regard then see there's trust, because I'm not trying to actually, push something onto them. I can go home that night and know that everything that came out of my mouth I believed, and I think that's what comes across to them, and therefore they're happy to then refer to their friends to say, "Yep, trusted this guy. He was good. He knew his stuff," and away it goes.
Yeah, because you came from working for sort of big corporations like banks and super funds, that sort of thing. So that's interesting. How do you find you're approaching your job differently these days, now that you're running the ship, versus when, you were part of this big global machine?
Yeah, I can be myself. I can be myself, because working for the banks, we'd spend weeks in classes at the bank to learn how to sell. I was told by the bank that I was the worst salesman in ACT New South Wales history, which I actually took as a bit of a badge of honour. But yeah, it was a case of everything related to selling, to dig out how on earth can we get the next sale. And so the actual, financial planning aspect of the actual providing a product to these things, there was more about a product rather than the actual strategy. And so now I'm free to do that. And so it's a case that the products, to me, don't exist. It's more to the fact of, what structure, what are these people missing? What don't they know? Most people come in and they just don't know what they don't know. And so we have a chat about their situation, what they're trying to achieve. And it's never up to me to say, no, this is a dumb thing. It's up to me to say, these are the ramifications, of what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah, I guess it would take just years of experience to be able to tailor every service to your client depending on what they need, rather than having a kind of pre-made cookie cutter product.
Yeah, I think it's probably lucky for me in the regard that I've got into this fairly late in life. So I've come from a background of other small businesses. So I've had things like bookshops, I've had a pub, I've had electronics business, I've been in the museo, and all sorts of other little weird and wonderful jobs along the way. And other personal things with divorce and all the other things, which teach you things about, life being tough. And so I can sort of come to, when I'm talking to my client, from a lot of different angles and say, show empathy.
Empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy is a word we hear very seldom on the internet these days.
Yes. Yes. Unfortunately, yes.
Why do you think that empathy has become your hallmark?
I think it's a case that's how I would like to be treated. It's the old sort of story, treat someone like you would, like to be treated yourself. But if I believe I'm talking to someone who can see where I'm coming from, then the conversation becomes easy, because people can relate to it, and that they're on the same page, and therefore, I'm happy to listen.
And the sale becomes easier as well. So for the worst salesperson in New South Wales ACT history, you seem to be doing pretty fine selling your services.
Yeah, the bank told me I was a dinosaur, but at least I was a happy dinosaur. Yeah.
Well, there's selling when you need to sell, and then there's making a sale through, just doing the right thing.
Absolutely. I mean, there's no doubt about some, clients do need things, they do need a sale. But to me, the actual sale of the product is way, 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 way down the list. It's finding out, where they're coming from, what are they trying to achieve, what sort of structure do we need, what sort of strategy we need to place, what are the tax ramifications, what's their savings capacity, blah, 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 blah. And eventually, if they've got the money left over, where are we going to put it? And that comes last. And the best part for me is I can never recommend a product anyway. I'm a coach. See, I'm not allowed to give advice. This is the whole thing that if they actually do need a product, then in fact I've actually got to refer them on. I can give them the ideas of the types of products they can look at. And I can talk to them about their own super account and their own investments and so forth, and we can make comments. But as a coach, I can give information, not advice, which I love. Yeah.
That's a beautiful segue, actually, because I did notice that you're a financial coach, not a financial advisor.
Yep.
And I know that there's actually big regulatory issues there between the two. Now, what I have written down here, I love to take you through all the little acronyms after your name here. Malcolm Chu, DIPSUP, DIP-FP, DIP-TA, DIP-FIN, parentheses MB, AASFA, PSS, PSS app, and CSS specialist. Malcolm, goodness me, I feel like I've run a marathon. Firstly, could you give us a very small breakdown of what all that means?
4 diplomas in financial planning,
okay,
mortgage broking, superannuation, and technical analysis. So I'm a bit of a chartist from that point of view. The AASF, whatever it is, I can't remember what the acronym is now. That's basically Association of Super Funds. I'm an associate member of the association. And the PSS, CSS. Now, this is where how I built my business. PSS and CSS are the old defined benefit superannuation scheming that Commonwealth public servants have been very, very, very lucky to be part of. And these things don't exist anymore. And I really built my business around these things because they are fairly complicated, boring as all hell for most people. And but I managed to get a fair bit of a handle on these things when I actually worked for the Commonwealth Superannuation Corporation a number of years ago. And so I became known as the guru on the PSS and CSS, and so that really helped to build my business. So to me, starting a successful business was the fact of creating a niche, and the niche for me was specialising for these Commonwealth public servants. Now, because my business is far more broad these days, but still predominantly, probably 80% of my work is coming from Commonwealth public servants. But then again, I do live in Canberra.
Yeah. Well, for everyone listening, Canberra is the head of, that's where the whole government resides. Most of the government resides in Australia. And that's really interesting what you said about sort of niching down there. Have you heard of the concept of a blue ocean and a red ocean in business?
No, I haven't.
So this is something that I talk about a lot in marketing. And it's the fact that if you go into being a finance coach or a business coach or whatever, you're going into what they say is a very red ocean. And the analogy is there's a lot of fish in there, lots of sharks feeding off the fish, hence the ocean turns very red. What you've done is you've taken that and you've niched down into that PSS, public servant, super, and put yourself right in a blue ocean where there's lots of fish to compare clients to fish and very few sharks feeding on them. So what you've done is you've taken a pretty saturated market, taken one extra thing that you can become an expert in, and created yourself a very successful business off that.
Absolutely. And I do get referrals then from other professionals who are helping their client with a whole range of issues, but then find out that their client has got a PSS and go, I don't know what this is. But I've heard that, perhaps you need to go and talk to Mel. So I'm getting referrals from people I don't even know who they are or where they came from or whatever, which is delightful. It just sort of keeps on feeding and feeding and feeding. So, and it's allowed me then, of course, to develop webinars and other material that I can utilize on the back of all that information and reputation.
It's sensational. It's really, really important. I think everyone needs to be able to, niche down just a little bit, not too far, not too far. Not I do PSS coaching for purely, 36 to 42-year-old males with one leg. But if we can, your level of, it seems to be the perfect blueness of ocean, the perfect size niche that's kept you going. And as we said, 6 sessions a day, every day up until this time next year. Very, very impressive. Let's talk about these webinars that you do. So how did you get into webinars? How do you run them? Because for me, a lot of my job is helping people to fill up webinars that they run online, because often there's a pitch or a sale at the end of a webinar. For you, you're actually charging for them and you're filling them organically.
Yes.
What's the process?
Yeah, look, it's just a case of some people dare I say, even afraid to come and talk to someone face to face, one-on-one. They think they don't know enough to ask the right questions, so they're basically looking for information first, then to find out what they don't know, and then they feel more comfortable. And I do get a lot of one-on-one appointments booked from the webinars from people who it was word of mouth that they go looking for information on, say, this PSS or CSS thing. And but yeah, I just charge per head, but there is no sales. It's just I make my money by having 100 people hanging on the line of these sessions on 2 hours on a Wednesday night. So it's a fairly long session, and sometimes it goes to 2.5 hours with questions. And but it really is. It started off. I just started off with these one for the public sector scheme, super scheme, and then I sort of expanded into ones on retirement. I did ones on getting started in shares, and as it just sort of grew, then I looked at the Gen Y market, and it's amazing the number of my clients who basically think, well, gee, wish I had known all this when I was a kid. And so they're paying their children, well, when I say children, they're early adults, 20s and 30s and so forth, to come and have a sessions and do webinars on what we should be doing when we're starting off in life and so forth. So it's just been building and building, and I just keep on asking my clients for, what sort of topic would you like me to talk about? So there's the next, if you've got enough people requesting the same thing, I'll put something together and away we go. And I just keep on getting gobsmacked that I'm not even advertising anywhere apart to my own client base. So I'm talking to the same people, and yet I'll do these webinars. I sort of cycle around in a circle, but probably, each topic at least once a quarter. And I'm getting 100 people each time. I say I'm only advertising, sending out one. I send out one email to my client base, and I get 100 people hanging online on the webinar. I sometimes I wonder what I would do if I actually did advertise. It's a bit scary, but look, to me, it's nice and simple. It's easy, and I enjoy it.
Well, it's incredible, and what I'd say what you've created is just raving fans. People who will just hang off at whatever you say. It's like the people who follow the Dire Straits around the world, go to every gig and buy the platinum editions of all their albums and everything. And I think that's what you've got. You probably, if you went advertising, you might even see that it doesn't work out too well for you, because you're going to a colder market who don't know you. And, then you got to put a lot of effort into selling these people. But when you have that client base of people who will just, never let you go, then you're all set. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, no, I have forums and things. I've found out my name appears on some of these forums where all these public servants are talking to each other, trying to help each other out, and they just my name just keeps on popping up. You need to go and see it now, blah blah blah. And I'm going, well, this is just free advertising, which is delightful.
That's great. And I think one of the main reasons why I think people must love you so much, not only that you're a lovely dude, that does help. Also, what you said before was a few people might be a little bit intimidated to come and sit down with you, have a one-to-one session. And, you are an expert, and some people might be a bit cap in hand if they come in to ask you about money. What I find a lot is if I go to an expert like a mechanic, for example, and I don't know anything about cars, and the mechanic makes me feel like a bit of a dickhead for not knowing how to fix a car.
Yep.
I think, well, it's not my job to know how to fix a car. That's what I'm here to
Sure.
pay you for. Help me out here, man, instead of talking down to me. How do you feel about that? Because obviously people would come to you and not know what they're talking about.
Yep.
How do you feel about that situation, that dynamic?
Absolutely. I think that because I did indeed get into this quite late in life, in the regard that I knew nothing about money in my 20s and 30s and 40s. And I basically got into finance because I was broke.
Yeah.
And so it was a case of, I remember not understanding the jargon. I remember not having a damn clue and wondering where all my money went and why I was broke and so forth. And so when I talk to my clients, I basically talk to them, and I can gauge it depending on the client. Now, obviously, these days I get some clients who are, high flyers and very, very well off and doing okay, and yet they still come to see me, which is lovely. But then I can readjust more the way I talk. But if I'm talking to someone who's never been to a financial planner before, they come in with their stupid statement and have got absolutely no idea how to read that thing, then yep, we start at the ground up and say, well, okay, what is this super thing? And explain. And I do a lot of scribble. Everything I do, I have a pad and paper in front of me. They get to keep my scribble. I have people come back years later with their scribble laminated.
Yes.
Because that's what reminds them of certain things. So the picture's worth 1,000 words. But yeah, a bit of scribble, and it's just a case of step by step and trying to avoid the jargon. Now that's difficult when you start talking superannuation because of non-concessional contributions and TBCs and APVs and all these acronyms that get thrown about. But we just try to break it down into little blocks, make sure they get to understand the first block. Having said all that, it is interesting that in general, what people are really coming for is the end result. They don't care quite frankly, how I get there. They want to know, when can I go? When can I go? How much am I going to be on? Can I afford to do this? Can I leave yesterday? Dare I say, I think the culture of the public service in Australia has perhaps deteriorated over the last 10 years or so. And,
right.
Most people just want to know, am I on track? Am I doing anything dumb? What should I be doing? What could I do? And you fill in the blanks. Yeah.
Well, that right there, that's marketing in a nutshell. That's people don't mind how you're going to get them there. They just want the outcomes.
Yep, sure.
And far too many people out there are selling the process. And probably with yourself, you are talking about outcomes with people. But if you went in there saying, I can help you to fix your congressional, whatever the word is, concessional, not congressional, it's a different vibe, then you probably have very few people walking through the door because they'd be intimidated and bored by that statement. They're excited by the outcome, and that's what you can get them to do.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
Do you get many business owners coming through your doors?
Yes. You get quite a few, and I think that's again what I've had numerous small businesses over time. Dare I say, many of them unsuccessful. Small business is a tough thing. In the early days, put food on the table, and there's a lot of hours, and quite frankly, you can waste a hell of a lot of time in a business that really was probably never going to get there. To a degree, and. Initially, yes, I bought businesses, or I, and borrowed money to buy someone else's problems. I don't think that's the way to start a business. I think it's basically finding a passion, finding something you're good at, finding a niche, and effectively, building it up. Perhaps part time, but you're doing something else, and just growing it to a point where it actually takes off. In this regard, I started this particular business quite late, and at the time, I was even thinking about retiring, and I said to my wife what I was planning to do, and she sort of says to me, "Well, how many clients do you really think you're going to get starting from scratch at your age?" And I said, look, if I can get 4 or 5 a week, I'll be pretty happy with that. And it just snowballed out of all proportions. But I'm having a ball. The day I stop enjoying it, I'll just shut the door and walk home.
What a fantastic position to be in, to be able to say that, right? Yep. A lot of business owners don't get to that point, and they do start to resent it because they're flogging your dead horse, as they say.
Yep.
Is there a money mistake you see a lot of small business owners make that actually has a pretty easy solution?
I don't really see many of them making a mistake that's got an easy solution. No. Generally, I see that a lot of small businesses are just underfunded.
Okay.
That they basically bite off. They're spending the cash flow is the biggest problem. That they might get there, they could get there, but because their cash flow is so poor, they just can't get to that next level. They're always just chasing their tail of paying down the debt. And any business that requires a big upfront in capital expenditure, that's always going to be a tough thing to get going, unless you really come in there with a huge reputation to start off with.
Yeah, it is tough. You had a pub. A pub is enormous overheads, right?
It was probably the worst I've ever had in my entire life. But I did learn a lot about people. Learn a lot about people and running a pub.
I'll bet. I used to own a cafe, and I came from managing restaurants and working as a chef, and I've been a head chef, and I've run teams, and I've paid the bills and all sorts of stuff. And so I've found that that's exactly the one thing I got from hospitality more than anything is working with people, because it's a high pressure environment, a lot of moving parts. You've got a small team now. Just three of you yourself, James, and Caitlin, yeah. Are you enjoying working with a small team these days?
Well, it's funny, really, because we never see each other.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I don't think James has even met Caitlin. To be quite frank, it's a strange arrangement in the regard that neither James nor Caitlin actually work for me; they work with me.
Yes.
And so it's simply a case that I just had too much work. And I had all these financial planners knocking on the door saying, Mel, I hear you're very busy. I'm here to help. But of course, these financial planners, some of them were very, very skilled and had good, good professional background. But when they found out how I worked as a coach, all of a sudden lost interest, because it was a case of, how do you make your money? And I said, well, I talk to 6 clients a day. That's a lot of work. Where they see 6 clients a week and charge $3,000 each for their plans and so forth, and make trailing fees and commissions. So when they found out my business model, they thought, no, too much like hard work. So I knew James from a previous occupation, and I liked his moral fibre, and we got chatting, and he said, look, no, loves the business model. And so effectively I just sort of handballed some, initially just handballed some from work just to relieve the pressure. Over time, he realised, no, this was far more enjoyable than what his business was doing. So he came underneath my umbrella. Best thing I ever did. At least, even though he actually lives in Sydney, but he drives down to Canberra, a couple of hour drive, 2 days a week to utilise my office. And but I say he's, I don't get to see him, but it's still lovely to have someone that I can now, pick up the phone or have an email and bounce ideas off, and also, dare I say, vent. Sometimes you always get that 1 or 2 clients where you go, do I, is this necessary? 99% of my clients are sensational, but no matter what business you've got, there's always one. So yeah, so as a small team, it's easy. And Caitlin, I just saw she had a nice little small business. She's called herself Millennial Mentor. Mm-hmm. And she was specialising in the younger generation, which I could see a huge potential in that area. And I just thought, well, Caitlin's got far more, because she's younger, I thought she was sort of more suitable for that market. So I thought, okay, she can fill a niche, and hopefully my Gen Y courses and things, eventually I'd like her to take those over. Yeah, so simple, yeah. But I don't actually employ anybody, so from that point of view, it's easy. I don't have any all the hassles of having staff.
It can get tough. Hospitality these days. Thank goodness you don't have your pub anymore. Every restaurant in the world is short-staffed at the moment.
Yes, I understand. Yeah,
to the point where one of my best friends he was my business partner in my cafe, 8 years ago. And now he's got a really, really successful burger shop here on the Northern Beaches, and he wins all these awards. And at the moment he's having to close more days than he's open because there just are not enough chefs to keep up with the demand that he does.
Yep.
And it's a very, very tough position. It's a very interesting kind of reset for hospitality.
Sure.
And I think he can scrape through because he's got a small kitchen, a small restaurant. But I can imagine these pub owners these days, where you got 500 seats at your pub, and that could be very, very tough. So absolute best of luck to all of them. What's the vibe down there in Canberra? Have you been out for a little cold schooner yet since lockdowns have ended?
I went out last night and the night before, I must admit. And,
good for you.
Yeah, but it was interesting because we went to a big club last night, and usually, the food's on your table before you almost sit down. Just last night, it was a long wait, which is unusual, but obviously, so staffing, probably is a problem. But yeah, there's been certainly people have been out and about as soon as they were allowed to try and support the local businesses and so forth. And I think we're just so happy to get rid of the mask.
Yeah, I bet. Goodness me.
I had a client just recently, and she was Russian, had a very, very strong Russian accent, spoke very quietly, and had a very, very thick mask when she came to see me, wouldn't take it off. And I said to her, "And how old are you?" And she goes, and I'm going, "Oh my gosh, this is going to be a very long meeting."
Yeah, my word. It's definitely presented some challenges, and a lot of people had to adapt in a lot of ways. I'm sure it's going to give you a lot of business once people have realized, probably in the last year and a half, that a lot of us are really one step away from no income.
Yep.
When we don't take our own responsibilities. So given that a lot of business owners, we have our small business and cash flow can be tough, and we don't always pay ourselves first. And a lot of us don't have super funds going yet because we're not at that point yet.
Yeah.
I mean, is there any small steps we can be taking on a weekly basis to kind of safeguard ourselves against?
You have to put money into super.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. That's probably the simplest and easiest thing I'm going to say to you is that the old thing that you really should be paying yourself 10% of your income. Mm-hmm. You've got to treat it like an expense. You have to treat it like an expense. I have too many small business owners who believe that their business is going to be their long-term superannuation. And they spend 5-10 years in it, but then the business fails or give up, and when they sell it, they're just paying back bills and so forth. And they've got absolutely nothing to show for it towards their retirement. To me, it's a case of saying, okay, if I'm going to pay myself 10% first, and that 10% goes into my super. And goes, as a small business owner, we put the money in, we get a tax deduction for putting it in. So it's that helps. Reduces our taxable income. And we got this benefit of compounding from a much, much younger age. So to me, it's almost like you put it up there with the rent and the utility bills.
I think you have to. Honestly, I'm in the first, probably since I've had my babies, I'm in the first kind of 2 years where I'm definitely focusing on paying myself more rather than kind of focusing on trying to build a business. And I don't pay myself much, but just consistently is more of the word. And super funds and everything, and hire an accountant to do it all right for me. The confidence I get from knowing that things are going aside, and as you said, compounding from the age of 29 rather than when it's too late. Very, very happy. And I think I still see a lot of business owners, who are working off a sole tradership, which is fine, but then mixing it with their personal money and just putting every expense on the business account. And it's very messy and very stressful. And now that I was transitioned to a company, I couldn't see me doing it any other way.
Yeah.
So sole traders out there, is there an easy sort of formula for how you approach money coming in versus what you do with it?
Yeah. If I always say to them, if you're not good at it, it's worthwhile to pay someone to do it, and generally speaking, perhaps even your partner can sometimes be that person. It doesn't have to be someone skilled as such, but it's got to be someone organised, someone who is actually going to every day, see the bills come in, put that into one side of the equation, money, coming in, and so it goes on. But the records is what's going to, how do you know how your business is going unless you've got some sort of good bookkeeping? And you need to see this as I'd say I love pictures, so Excel spreadsheets with graphs and charts and all those sorts of things to see how you've been progressing is definitely the way to go. And because I do get a lot of younger people saying to me, however, that they're not happy to be putting money into superannuation. I can certainly understand that, because here in Australia they've changed the rules so many times with their superannuation that they're always fearful that they're going to change the rules on them and won't be able to get their money out until they're 70 or something like that, which is fair comment. And if you don't want to work, or don't want to have to work until you're 65 or 70, then yes, you need to have investments outside of super so that you can retire at 55 or 60 and live on that money until you get to your superannuation, and so it goes on. So it comes down to the person's desire. But as far as small business is concerned, good records, it's a must. It absolutely is.
I think the issue is, Malcolm, that for someone my age, in the generation I've come up in, small business has become very sexy. Entrepreneurship all over social media. You say you're an entrepreneur and they wear the blazer over the t-shirt, and they fly private and put all their photos on Instagram with their car and everything. And people do not want to sacrifice the social status they can get now for something as boring as a retirement or superannuation fund. And that is a shame, because people are putting their ego now ahead of their security in the future. And Absolutely. For me saying that, I can't even believe I'm talking like that, because that sounds like I've heard my own dad's words come out of my own mouth. But I'm glad they are now, because I think you're spot on. And it's if someone was to say to you, which is a thought in my head a lot, money, cash is becoming less and less valuable. There's inflation happening all around the world. Putting money into a super fund, is that just going to be worth, less and less as the years go by?
This is where a lot of Australians don't understand. They say, during good times, people are happy to throw money into investments and so forth. When things are going nasty, the market's falling and doom and gloom, everyone's far more reticent to be putting money into their accounts. And I remember certainly during the crash, during the GFC, I had all these clients saying to me, why on earth would I want to put more money into super? Super lost me money last year. And I say, no, superannuation did not lose you any money. It was the investment that you've got in your superannuation that lost you the money. Now, most people, it's surprising the number of people don't even know that they can actually change their investment inside their superannuation or what other investments they might have. And I think what's happened here is that Australians have forgotten about risk. They look at reward, can I get 18%? Can I get 30%? But at what risk? And even the terminology that we use these days, predominantly anyone in Australia, if you don't choose, your money goes into what they call a balanced account. And everyone goes, oh, balanced, okay, that's okay. I'm not a big risk taker, nor am I someone very conservative. I'm someone in the middle, and that's me. I'm average Joe. But what they don't understand is that a balanced account actually has about 70% of it is actually in things like shares. So if the share market falls, you will lose money. And they go, oh, I don't want that sort of risk. And yet they don't understand that they can then turn around and move it to something perhaps more conservative or even something stable or cash, as we're talking about. So this longer term business of what are we going to earn is a big problem, because the last decade that we've had has been an extraordinary decade since the bottom of 2009, where governments have been lowering interest rates, printing money, throwing money into, for stimulus. The market has just reacted to it in a way that is just crazy. And of course, here we are, we got the market did over 20% in a year of a global pandemic, for God's sake. This is not normal. And every time we get these situations, what happens is the market goes back to normal. We are going to see some losses, and this is going to impact on people's on their longer term wealth. And so we're worried about putting our money into a bank account because we're not earning anything, and everyone's looking for other things. But all these other things, we've got to look at the risk perspective, and there's going to be some pain, which is and to work out. This is probably my hardest job, is when people come to me, what am I going to earn over the next 15 years? We need to work off some conservative numbers, and they don't like that. But I'm going to go gung ho, and I think, well, gung ho's fine, but what are you going to base on, the last 10 years or the last 50 years?
No guarantees, and it could be a whole nother podcast. There's been a bit of a correction in the cryptocurrency markets the last week or so.
Yep.
And my friends and I say Bitcoin's on sale right now, and that's the way we approach that.
Yep.
Is we try and plan long term, but the people I know who kind of day trade and flip and all that kind of thing, they're freaking out a little bit with these big swings, but that's okay. We're all planning for the future, and that's exactly what you're here to help us do, Malcolm. I think you've given us a tremendous amount of really valuable info today. I can see why you're booked out every day for a year, because you are very, very approachable and fun to talk to. I'm glad you've managed to use Zoom for the first time. Is there anything, you don't need to do any marketing at all, but is there anything you'd like people to know about your business, where they can find you, anything you've got coming up that they might be able to attend?
Well, it's always just a case of going to our website. I don't even put my phone number out there. I can't be bothered answering the phone. But it's a case of, it's just the moneystudy.com.au. I think what I'm really looking for is other ideas. I really like people to contact me with sort of thing where they believe they can't get that sort of information from anywhere else, or they don't trust it from anywhere else. And if people can make suggestions that they would like to hear, I just put out there, would you like to hear something on gold, or would you like to hear something on cryptocurrency? Would you, and I'm not a day trader, but I'm a shorter term trader. I do highly leveraged sort of investments, but I'm putting one together about shorting the market. Can you make money when the market falls? And there's not many people know how to do this, but that's all those sort of things. So I'm looking for ideas, I suppose, because I'm happy to go where the flow is, I suppose.
I can tell you are. That's the musician in you. That's the musician in you, happy to go with the flow. But hey, I want to say thank you so much to Malcolm Chew for being here today. Thank you so much, mate. And I cannot wait to re-listen to this podcast and learn some more stuff. Anyone watching live, thank you so much for checking us out today. And anyone listening, I'll be back in a few days' time with another episode of Coaches to the Moon. So until then, much love, everyone, and peace